With the first BlizzCon in years this September, rumors around a supposed Classic Plus announcement are only growing in the WoW community, and with that, excitement and expectations are only rising. But if Classic Plus is indeed getting announced at BlizzCon, that also means we're getting close to the point where all of the discussions and debates that have been spinning around this topic actually have to start translating into decisions. And some of these decisions are going to be really difficult ones, because there's a handful of issues that don't really have a clean answer around this version of the game, problems that aren't going to go away no matter how good the core game design is, because Blizzard are going to have to navigate them whether they're ready or not. And today I wanted to talk about what I think will be some of the larger issues to face Classic Plus. The first and probably most fundamentally obvious one is that Classic Plus cannot just be vanilla. By definition, it needs to change, and it needs to change quite significantly, whether that's new raids, new quests, adjusted class balancing, additional content patches, or anything else. The whole premise of Classic Plus is that it's vanilla and extra stuff. And when you start changing things, you're going to hear from a certain part of the player base that things have gone too far. I think around 2019 with the release of Classic, a lot of people would have called themselves vanilla purists. Those people coming off the back of private servers such as Nostarius, who had already been playing the game for years. And I think to a degree we'll see a lot of those people re-emerge when Classic Plus starts to happen. Yet if it's too similar, it's just going to look like all those different versions of vanilla which we have been playing for the past 7 years now. Between all our re-releases, there have been about half a dozen different freshes through vanilla. And there is a counter-argument here too, and a good one. It's that players who specifically want no changes don't really have to worry about Classic Plus because you already have what you want. It's called Classic Era, and I'm supposing those servers are not going anywhere, so anyone who wants that true vanilla experience forever has that option to them. And Classic Plus doesn't have to, and it shouldn't cater to an audience who already have what they want. That being said, there's definitely going to be some challenges here, because if you change too little, Classic just feels like another vanilla, and if you change too much at once, you risk alienating the people who came for the Classic experience in the first place. Finding that line between the two is going to be difficult, and it's going to be something which absolutely grows over time. But to some degree, even at launch, Classic Plus needs to separate itself from just being another fresh. Before we go on, a quick word from today's sponsor, boot.dev, and stick around because I've got a special discount code that you won't want to miss out on. Ever been curious what the code behind games actually looks like? Well, boot.dev teaches you to code for real, starting as a beginner in Python all the way to expert. They've built the whole experience as a hands-on RPG-like journey, and really for me, hands-on learning is the absolute best way to do this. You'll pick up things so much faster when you're actually doing them in real time instead of just theory. And throughout the curriculum, you're writing real code and building real projects, the kind of things you'd actually be doing at a job. Boot.dev has a massive amount of content available too, but it's broken up in a way that makes it manageable. You're not staring at an overwhelming wall of lessons, it's structured into clear paths and courses so you always know what's next. And if you need extra practice on specific concepts, the training grounds provide personalized coding challenges. You can grind through as many challenges as you need before moving forwards, and as you progress through lessons, you'll also unlock pages in the spellbook, a kind of growing cheat sheet of notes and references you can always come back to when you need a refresher. So whether you want to dive right in or just check out Boot for the first time, who knows what this could be the starter for you. You can click the link in the description and use my code Willie to get 30% off your entire first year for boot.dev. Thank you as always to boot.dev for supporting the channel. Let's get on back to WoW. Another issue which really divides people is a feature that came right at the start of Classic in 2019, and I don't think it's gonna go anywhere. That is layering. There's been a huge community survey called the Classic Plus Project fairly recently. You may have seen it, it's definitely worth a look. And on the topic of layering there, roughly 34% of respondents said they wanted layering to work as it currently does, 33% wanted open world layering but not in cities, and 27% wanted no layering whatsoever. That's pretty much a three-way tie between 3 different options, but it is also worth understanding what layering really is, because layering was a brand new feature built specifically for Classic so that we didn't have sharding. But in essence, both systems aim to do a similar thing in dividing the amount of people up in the open world so not to cause overcrowding, too many queues for quests, or competing for resources. But when we're getting to the 33% who say they want layering in the open world but not in cities, that isn't layering, that's sharding. And that's a retail system that targets specific zones when they become overpopulated. A layer is a copy of the entire world. However, sharding is when a certain zone gets overcrowded, then new shards are created. And if Blizzard were to bring sharding into Classic, is it going to be a better solution than layering long term? I mean, possibly, but maybe it's better the devil you know than the one you don't. Because retail sharding can just kick in so seamlessly that you don't notice it's there most of the time. Then again, if you've played retail much, how often do you see a load of people out in the open world or in cities? I think when you're doing world boss quests, that's the most people you see on one screen at a time, but even when world boss drop on Classic Era these days, you still see more people gathered together in one place. Another issue with layering is people abusing the system for their own benefit, which has been a problem since it's existed really, although it's become more difficult to abuse as of late. But when you're joining a group to dodge world PvP, to get more resources or anything else, it's the system which isn't perfect, but it serves the game well enough. To be honest, I highly doubt Blizzard are going to can this system in advance of Classic Plus. They've been working on it for 7 years now, and the alternative would be what is in retail, and I think that would overly split up populations in the world. So for me, ultimately, I think layering definitely isn't perfect, but it's probably about as good as we're going to get. Next topic is one that absolutely has to be brought up. Classic Plus has got to make money. On some level, we all know this, even if nobody really wants to talk about it. At the moment, Classic is covered by a standard subscription, which technically can get you access to any version of WoW, albeit you need to buy expansions. And that's worked fine for the re-releases of old content, but if Classic Plus is going to expand their development team, be receiving new patches and evolving content, I don't think Blizzard's going to settle for just subs anymore. The question is what Blizzard will be willing to add and what the community will be willing to accept on top of subscriptions. And there are definitely a few possibilities here. Typically, Blizzard has expansions where they sell packs, they sell boosts and tons of other stuff, and they can really rake in a ton of real-life gold from that. However, I don't know how that system will work with Classic Plus, given that it's expected to go from major patch to major patch. To me at least, part of the whole point of doing Classic Plus is to not have major expansions, but to just continue onwards from level 60 where we are. Then again, who knows if I'm right to believe that or not. Or alternatively, perhaps Blizzard are looking at a more seasonal Battle Pass-esque type system, sort of with Diablo 4 or Overwatch. This would mean a new major patch would come out, and to access certain content, you'd have to pay something on top of your subscription. The thing with Battle Passes is they often come with a way to accelerate towards rewards or get cosmetics, and I'm not sure how well that system fits into an MMO, to be honest. What would also be less of a surprise long term would be for the WoW token to find its way into the game in some form. They already put it in Wrath Classic in 2023, about a year and a half after that version launched. But I wouldn't be concerned about the WoW token on day one whatsoever. I mean, just think about how it would work with an economy that doesn't exist yet. You'd have to buy multiple WoW tokens to afford your level 40 mount. It would just completely break the game and be so dumb. That being said, after some time has gone by, say 1 year or so, and Blizzard's coming up with a new major big patch, they may just slide in the WoW token as an extra bit of monetization. Then again, I'd expect them to do things such as server transfers, character features, all that kind of stuff, which they typically do. I think for monetization, a lot will depend on how Blizzard is really planning to roll out Classic Plus, but what I can pretty much guarantee you is they'll want more than just your subscription fee. But if we're paying more, or have the option to pay more, we should expect more in return, right? It only seems fair. And that leads on to the next topic of game masters and botting. So if Classic Plus succeeds and attracts a healthy population long term, it's going to be botted heavily. And that's not pessimism, unfortunately, that's just the reality of the situation. Bots go where money is, and Classic Plus will absolutely, for however long, be where the money is. Now, Blizzard has run ban waves against botters throughout Classic's history. In 2020, they banned around 74,000 accounts, and more recently in 2023 during Wrath, I remember them saying they banned approximately 120,000 bots. But however much they've done, it never quite seems to be enough. Even now on anniversary servers, we've seen a new wave of casino gambling bots, and there being posts on Reddit about creative ways to kill them every single day. Obviously, botting is harmful for the game, but again, it's where the money is and people are buying gold, so it really is a problem on both ends of Blizzard being capable of doing more but not doing it by hiring GMs, and people buying gold, so they're facilitating bots to exist. What I can say about the botting situation and GMs is that we've had Classic for 7 years now, and essentially what Blizzard are doing is what Blizzard are willing to do. I wouldn't really expect them to do anything beyond that. Don't get me wrong, I want them to, but if we're being realistic, this is what they've shown they want to do. As for how much that impacts the game, only really you can say for yourself. Something else worth bringing up for Classic Plus is how much things have changed, not just since vanilla in 2004, but even since vanilla in 2019. The people who are playing the game are just much different than they used to be. I'd estimate your average Classic WoW enjoyer would be late 20s to early 30s at the moment. These are people who are better informed about the game, they're more focused on efficiency, and on average they have less free time to grind away at stuff on games, and this combination creates some real friction with the design assumptions that vanilla was built on. The classic example is gold. Everyone needs it, everyone wants it, a lot of people don't want to farm it. But in vanilla, gold farming is something you just need to do. You spent time out in the world, gathering herbs, running dungeons, selling materials on the auction house. It was slow and repetitive, but when you get home from school, you have pretty much the rest of the day to do whatever you want. When you get home from work, maybe not so much anymore. But now players have seen their classes, they know exactly what consumables they need, they know their pre-raid BIS before you hit level 40. And this goes back to a mindset that I covered in a video some time ago called the classic quit point, where people get to a certain point in the game, they hit raid log status, and then essentially all they want to do is log in, raid, log off again. And the speed at which players consume the content and get to that raid log status has been sped up so much over all these different versions of Classic. Players who have done vanilla 3 or 4 times know the optimal path to absolutely everything. They're getting everything done in a matter of weeks or maybe a month, and then after that the prospect of going to farm gold and competing with bots does not seem very appealing. But what I'm getting at with this change in player attitude is that Classic Plus needs to acknowledge that the people who are playing this game are also different now, and that ties into thinking harder about horizontal content, things to do that aren't just the vertical progression ladder of level, gear, raid. Not everyone needs to be at that bleeding edge of progression for the game to feel logging into, but there has to be enough diverse reasons to log in that the endgame doesn't immediately collapse into raid logging for the majority of the player base. Of course, there should absolutely still be a ton of group content, and vanilla has never been short on group content, but I think with less time there's a growing amount of the player base who will benefit from stuff which is either a little more horizontal or even solo friendly. Next point is about overhype or comparison, because it's worth talking here a little bit about Turtle WoW, because it's going to be brought up constantly when Classic Plus is finally announced. Turtle WoW ran for years before they flew a bit too close to the sun, and Blizzard eventually had them shut down fairly recently. But that version of WoW was a realized Classic Plus that thousands of people enjoyed, and it contained tons of things which I know people would love to see in Blizzard's own version of it. But the problem with using Turtle WoW as a standard for Classic Plus at launch is that Blizzard isn't inheriting years of development work. They've been working on Classic Plus for how long now, do you think? A little bit before Season of Discovery? They were already alluding to it years ago at this point in time. But when Classic Plus launches, I think we really need to treat it as its own thing. A fresh server, even a well-resourced one that's been worked on for a long time, is still a fresh server, and it's not going to be able to match up with one that's been going for years and years with tons of community feedback and growth. Then again, maybe I'm wrong and Blizzard have gone absolutely all out for the launch and it is going to be completely mind-blowing. But either way, I think we need to temper expectations a little bit and not get overhyped and end up being disappointed. There's one last thing I want to bring up, and this is again from me looking through Classic Plus project posts. There were 2 really upvoted comments on the systems part of the site, and they were essentially saying the same thing. One that Blizzard should encrypt all data to prevent data mining, and another one to say no extended beta to hide what the new content will be. And both of these had about 95% upvotes with hundreds of them, so clearly this is a very popular opinion. I don't know how you feel about that, you can let me know, but essentially it's saying Blizzard should hide content until it's in front of us, that people don't want to know anything about what is new until it is finally there. And I'm going to be honest, I think this is completely the wrong call and I absolutely disagree. I want to give you one example of why, and that is called Phase 3 of Season of Discovery with Nightmare Incursions. This was genuinely one of the worst systems I've ever seen being introduced to the game. People were farming hundreds of gold per hour, getting up to the next level cap in a couple of hours compared to questing. It gave really good gear, a lot of the quests just felt kind of weird and unfinished, and it was just frustrating and frankly bad. And it may not have in reality caused that much damage, but people felt as though it did. they felt as though they missed out on something and that they're now behind. And it really was the start of the downwards trend for Season of Discovery until things started to pick back up post 60. I want to draw a comparison with old school RuneScape here, and no, it's not about player voting because, I mean, I kind of like it, but I don't think Blizzard will do that. What I want to highlight is how Jagex publishes developer blogs explaining about what they're going to be changing, what options they're considering, why they think these things need to be changed, and so on. At the moment, they're doing something called a Summer Sweep Up, which is a bunch of changes across the game that they do every so often. It's a document that walks through the current development thinking within the game, offers options with reasoning, invites real discussion before anything is committed to, and they even go and revise it following community feedback. This is what I want to see from Classic Plus. Honest explanations of what Blizzard is trying to solve with a given piece of content, transparency about what's being tested and why, and yes, we would lose out on something here. We wouldn't have that day one discovery of what's brand new and fresh. However, word travels so fast on the internet now and things get solved so quickly that I don't really think it's worth the trade-off anymore. All in all, essentially, before things go live, I would love to hear about them first and why they're being put in the game. But these are some of the largest issues I think Classic Plus is going to have to work through. None of them really have an easy answer. The player base is divided on layering, there is no such thing as frictionless monetization, botting isn't going to go away, and the community's expectations have been shaped by years of fan service. What Blizzard has going for them is the demand is clearly there. I'm seeing more and more posts crop up about Classic Plus recently, and I think whatever happens, this will be the biggest thing that's happened for World of Warcraft since Classic in 2019. As for when it will release, that's still a bit of a question mark, but Blizzcon in September will hopefully hold all the answers. So let me know what you think about everything I went over today. Are there any clear solutions, and would any of these gone the wrong way be a deal breaker for you? Shout out to boot.dev for sponsoring this video. You can check them out for free via the link below and get started on backend web development today. And as always, thank you all so much for watching and listening in, and I'll see you all in the next one very soon.